Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Knife Chats with Tobias. Okay, this is going to be more of a ramble than normal. I don't know exactly where this is actually going to take me either. The general subject, I think, is going to be hardware store knives. And these are the knives really made for your average Joe. They're definitely not knives that were made for it with the collector in mind, because they basically sold at a hardware store. Hardware stores sell all sorts of tools, and when you're talking about construction workers or somebody hanging drywall or somebody working on the roads or something like that, typically the knife is not the main tool that they're going to carry, but they will normally have some kind of knife on them because they're usually going to want to cut something. And what I have here are some examples of knives that you commonly find in the hardware stores. And so it's kind of like, these are not the knives made for the knife collector. These are the knives made for the rest of the world. Now, I should clarify a little bit. First of all, by hardware store, I'm talking about anything from like an Ace Hardware, which is truly a hardware store, to the larger big box home improvement stores like Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, those kind of places. I guess you could also throw in Farm and Fleet and Tractor Supply, those kind of places, Harbor Freight. All of those are the kind of places I'm talking about, where you basically go to buy tools. So not just knives, but tools. And knives are sort of an afterthought in those places. But even in these places, there's two brands that you can almost always find. And then there's a couple other brands that seem to be marketed more towards those big box home improvement places, as opposed to the knife community in general. But the two knives you'll almost always find at kind of like any of those places, any kind of hardware store that I'm talking about. One of them is a Swiss Army knife. It will never be a large variety of Swiss Army knives. It'll usually be about 3 or 4 different ones. Sometimes you'll see the keychain ones, the 58 millimeters, but mostly it's a 91 millimeter Swiss Army knife, often with the Phillips driver on the back. Sometimes you'll find it with like a corkscrew on back, but typically it's the screwdriver version of the knife. And the Tinker being a big one, also like the Super Tinker, things of that nature, are the typical Swiss Army knives that you find in the big box stores and in the home improvement places. And they're usually at a decent enough price. The other knife that shows up an awful lot is the Buck 110, also the Buck 119. Those two tend to show up quite a bit in these kind of places. And it's your USA option, I guess. These two knives you see a lot, as well as other bucks. You do see a wide variety of buck knives in there. A few USA made, but also some of the Chinese made bucks show up in there. Now, my thought originally was to try and do this as like an open tag. And honestly, if you want to join in on this and show me whatever hardware store knives you got, I would be more than, I'd really like to see them, see what kind of variety is out there, in those kind of places. Because I'm rarely in like a Farm and Fleet or a Harbor Freight. Typically the ones I'm at are like Home Depot and Menards. And what I have here are some knives from both of those stores. Actually, I only have knives from Home Depot right now. But you can see from these, let's see here. You can see from these pictures that I'm showing on the screen here, these are knives that I photographed when I was at a Home Depot, and also at a Menards. And you see the various varieties of knives here, including the brand names, that the store brand names like Milwaukee and Husky. Also, it seems like Outdoor Edge is there as well. But then you also see the other knives showing up, and two of them are knives that almost always show up in these kind of places. I've always seen Camillus and Gerber at both Home Depot and at Menards. And a lot of people talk about, man, those knives suck. Everyone is talking about how, especially Gerber, you're always hearing people talk about how the quality of Gerber knives has dropped from when they were first around. And the same thing with the post-2007 Camillus knives. They're just not the same as the Camillus USA-made knives from before. And, well, I think this is part of the reason for it, is Camillus and Gerber are no longer, they're not in the business of making a knife for the knife collector or the knife enthusiast. They're in the business now of making that knife that somebody is going to throw in their pocket and take it out to a construction site or something of that nature. And there's a totally different mindset going on with the person. Now, yes, there are obviously some construction workers out there who have that $200 knife, that have that bench made and so on and so forth. But these are typically the knives I think that you're going to see in the pocket of Joe Average. And I've got a variety of them here that are of interest. Well, first of all, this was sent to me, and this, as you can see, well, if I turn it over this way, you can see, is the latest Klein tool electrician knife. Talk about a difference in electrician knives. Let's compare this to one of the older Klein tool electrician knives. So here we have it. We all know what it looks like. The old linesman knife. You got the spear blade going on with it, right? Nice half stop going on. And then you've got the locking screwdriver with the wire stripper and everything else happening with it. And this was the knife, that an electrician's grandpa, this is grandpa's knife. That's what a lot of people call it. And it's a really good knife. Got the brass and everything else. You got the Delrin covers that are like the wood grain Delrin covers. That's the old electrician knife. This is the electrician knife for the modern electrician. You got the wire stripper gauges here. It's one hand opening. There is no screwdriver with it because, well, quite frankly, he probably has another screwdriver going on with him. It's not like this is the only tool he's going to be carrying with him. And it's something he can open and close one-handed. And he can clip it onto his pocket or onto his gear, whatever he wants to do. So he's taken advantage of all the modern technology to turn out a much easier to operate and easier to use electrician knives. This is a fabulous knife. Will it ever become a collector's item? Well, who would have ever thought this would become a collector's item? But a lot of people like to collect electrician knives. But do you have one of these in your collection? Chances are, no. You probably went ahead and grabbed something like this, which is the Rough Rider electrician knife with the black smooth bone handles and, blade etch and everything else. This is not the electrician knife that an electrician is going to use today. Matter of fact, I had an electrician over by my house doing some work and everything, and I showed him this knife, and he said, "Oh yeah, when I was first starting off as an apprentice electrician, when he was an apprentice electrician, the person who was showing him the trade made him do everything with a knife like this. He said, this is your best friend, you got to use this knife. And he taught him everything he needed to know with this knife here. And that was like 40 years ago when he first started off. And he thought it was great, but then he's like, but as soon as he set out on his own, he stopped using a knife like this, and he was using something more like this now. He actually, what he had in his pocket was a Kershaw, you know, that he could flip out. I think he had a Kershaw leak. I think that's what he was using as his electrician knife. So he wasn't even using something by Klein tool. But this really kind of makes more sense for today's electrician. It doesn't have super steel in it or anything, neither does this, but it was the knife that would work for an electrician. So that is kind of what we're looking at with these knives, is knives that work as just a tool in the pocket for somebody who might be swinging a sledgehammer or a jackhammer, or who knows what they might be working with. But that's what these are, workman's knives. And this one here is pretty interesting. I saw this one on another show, and I had already been looking at, I wanted to find another Camillus knife other than a marlin spike knife that was modern to test out. And I was looking online and I saw this one. And then I also, when I saw it, I was looking at it on eBay, came across this. It's known as the Defy. And apparently the person who bought it online and did the only review of it I could find online that was done by an individual and not the company, really liked it. And if you notice here, it has a crossbar lock or an axis lock for the blade, so you can actually pull the crossbar lock down, and it's easy to pull down and flip the blade open one-handed, or you can use the thumb studs to do it. It's got dual density plastic handles going on, and it's got a crossbar just like you find. Look at how smooth that is and how it drops and everything. Well, let's flip it this way, the right way. See that? Opens real easy, drops shut. You got the Camillus little dagger going on there. You can remove the clip. It does not reverse, which is very common in these knives. But this is a $20 knife as opposed to a $200 Benchmade, or $150 or $110, whatever the Benchmades go for. But it has all the same technology that you find in there, but it's using 420 steel. Now that's for the $20 knife. You can find Camillus knives with a crossbar using D2 tool steel for $25. I just like the colors of this one, so I grabbed it instead. I might go back and grab the other one because this one works really well. So you can see what I mean. And this is, I think he bought it at Farm and Fleet. Called it his John Deere knife because it's got the John Deere colors going on with it. So you got that knife that you find there all the time. Gerbers are big. I'm sorry, I do not have, the only Gerbers I have are older Gerbers, like the Gerber Easy Out. I could break that out and show it to you, I guess. This is an older one, you know, and it's easy out. You got the hole to open it. You got the lock back in the middle there to drop it. It's a really nice knife. Obviously, this one is an older one, Gerber USA, easy out. I don't know when this one is from, but it's a nice knife. Used to have a pocket clip. It doesn't anymore. But these are the kind of knives that you see from Gerber. And that's also the other thing you see with a lot of these knives is GFN handles, you know, glass fiber, reinforced nylon, whatever you want to call it, kind of handles. That's what you see on so many of these knives. So they're really lightweight. They're durable. You can run them over with a truck and not have an issue with them. Blade steel is never really great, but then the price is really low. And we're talking about people who are either just going to throw it away and buy another one, or they're going to take it home and sharpen it themselves. I actually heard a story of a person who was using a his linoleum knife, and what he would do is to sharpen it, he would just find a concrete step and sharpen it on a concrete step when he was sharpening his hawkbill. He'd just go around the right at the top of a concrete step. You know, can you imagine trying to do that with S35VN? You can probably do it with 420 or 440 or some kind of 1070 carbon or something like that. But on a harder steel, you're not going to be able to sharpen it on a concrete step. And so these are knives that people are going to basically abuse. Now, this is one by Husky. Now, Husky is, see that? And this is like a Spyderco Dyad, I think. Can't see where it says Husky. There it is, Husky. See it? And this is 2 blades. Open on this side, and you've got a nice fine edge. You got a liner lock going on. And you open it on the other side, and you've got your serrated edge. And look at how the serrations go. It's an interesting serration. Bigger here, finer at the top. This is a ripoff of Spyderco. They just copied it. Can you open it one-handed? Not really. Well, maybe you can. You can if you're right-handed. So, but the Husky I have also is this one here, and this one looks really good. You've got the wood handle, opens easy enough. The blade is really tight here. And you see this a lot with these knives where they have a fine edge and also a serrated edge. And that seems to be very popular. Again, a lockback. A lot of these knives will have a lockback, but not all of them. Liner locks are also pretty common. This one had a liner lock. You saw that. And it opens really smooth. And closes really smooth. This is a really well-made knife. Now, this is one of the last ones I picked up. I picked this one up about 2 weeks ago when I started doing some gardening, and it's like, oh, this is a hawkbill. And it's like Milwaukee. I've heard of Milwaukee tools before. I know they're pretty decent and everything. And this is in their Fastback line, Milwaukee Fastback. And you see the button there, and that is a button release, because if you see the blade here, it will not open. You cannot open this by just pulling on it, because this blade is a safety lock. And so what you can do is push the button down, and then the blade will easily open. And, well, if I'm off camera, I can't do it in front of the camera, I doubt. Yeah, I can't flick it. I just can't get the angle, but you heard it snap off camera. You see how it just pops right open. Now, it has a liner lock to keep it open. But that lock, the button is what releases it. You could, in theory, I guess, well, I can't imagine doing it. Yeah. There's no easy way to do it one-handed like this. You can do that, obviously. But the thing is the reason it's called a fastback is because with a flick of a wrist, once you have that button pushed down, you can just flip this blade open. Now, I can't do it on camera because I just don't have the angle or anything. Maybe I can. There we go. You see that? Had to stand up. Can't do it sitting behind the camera, but epic fail. There we go. It's a really good, quick knife. And it's a nice knife, and it looks nice. It's got a nice big handle. You got a good finger spot right there to put your hand. And I was using this for gardening, cutting up branches and all sorts of other stuff. Cleaned up really well. I don't know what kind of steel is in it. Probably 420, maybe 440. But it just feels good in the hand and everything else. You got a wire clip that's easy to remove if you want to remove it. And it locks. So you can actually take off that clip, throw it in your pocket. You don't have to worry about it popping open or anything like that. Even if you press the button down, you still have to give it a flick. But you slip it in your pocket, push the button, it's going to be doing that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's not a big deal. Anyway, as you can see, there's a lot of options in the world of hardware store knives. And unlike gas station knives, these knives, I feel, were made with a purpose. They're not extremely gaudy or anything. Typically, what you will see is lots of branding on them, like Milwaukee has branding on it. Klein tool, you'll definitely know you've got a Klein tool knife. And same with Camillus. Camillus is going to put some branding on their knives, as well as Husky and any of the other store brands out there. But you don't see them like all decked out in camo or anything. Well, some of the Camillus knives are all decked out in camo, but you know what I mean. They're not the gas station knife. They're not fantasy knives or anything like that. These knives were made for working, and that's what I think is really cool about them. And also, I think it's one of those, they're overlooked by the collector because there's nothing really special about them, I guess you could say. But really, these knives, regardless of where they're being made, they're kind of defining the American workman today. So that's something also to think about when you're looking at these knives. If you enjoyed this, let me know. If you want to show us whatever workman's knife that you picked up at a hardware store, I'd really like to see it. I don't care what kind it is. Well, other than Buck and Victorinox or Swiss Army knives, because we see these all the time. But some of the other knives, they don't get the love they deserve among the knife community, I think. Any case, with that said, I will let you go. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Let me take just a second to thank you once again for dropping by and spending a few minutes here at Knife Chats with the Pious. I really do appreciate it, and I do appreciate any comments that you leave. So please remember to give me that thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode is up and running. Thanks again for dropping by. Really do appreciate your time here.